Welcome everybody to this big cycle webinar update. I'm Libby Chaplin, CEO of the Battery Stewardship Council. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country across Australia and recognise their enduring connection to land, waters and communities. This is a photo of a hill that I'm actually looking at, and you can just see below the tree line there, there are actually quite a few middens. So you get a real sense that, this is a very present area for them. Really, in that context, want to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and really honour that deep connection to country and the vital role that they've been playing in caring for and preserving for it over thousands of years. We've got quite a bit to get through. I want to welcome you all. Obviously, really appreciate the time that it takes to come to these types of events, and to really thank you for your interest in the work that we're doing. Wanted to also give you a quick update on results, go over B-Cycle 2.0 in a fairly high level way, but also to give you some feedback from the survey that we conducted in December, and a quick update on the ACCC re-authorisation and regulatory reform. And then there are just a few other things I want to draw to your attention, and then we'll have a Q&A. So we have quite a few people today, which is fantastic. Thank you so much. We have both some new and old people, and so there's a little bit of information here that the old people will have seen before. But we've also spiced it up a bit with some new information. I also just want to really acknowledge that there are some quite serious global and local challenges that are happening at this time, and to recognise, particularly our friends, families and colleagues preparing for the cyclone in Queensland and New South Wales, which adds some real challenges. And there's the mental health issues that go along with that. And I just want to highlight to you our new shirts, which are safety shirts for going on site to recycling facilities. These are made by Traegmutt, and 50% of the profits go to free and professional mental health counselling for tradies, truckies, farmers and blue-collar workers. So really glad to be supporting that initiative, and also to be improving our safety on site. We've got a few webinar logistics. We're recording the webinar. It will go on to the website, so you or other colleagues can access it over time. We are using the chat function to capture your questions, and then we'll come back to the questions at the end of the presentation. So a quick update on the FY24 results. I think before we just launch into that, it's easy just to get carried away in the day-to-day doing of things, but actually the work that we're doing together, all of us sitting around this table, is critically important for numerous reasons, for really achieving our carbon neutral goals, for reducing emissions, managing this blowout in battery sales, which is fantastic and enabling us to be much more independent in the way we live, but also managing all the challenges that come across with that. So managing the cost of doing that, managing the changes in commodity values, in risk profile and battery hazards, and also knowing that these changes fluctuate. Changing risk profile may well decrease as we move into different chemistries, but right now, obviously, it's a really significant and important challenge for us to address. I really want to thank the whole community, and every one of you here contributes to the work that we're doing. So I really very much appreciate your time and your patience as we navigate some of these dynamic environment in which we're working. And also, I really also want to acknowledge the board. This is a not-for-profit board, independent, and really strong governance for managing conflict of interest and dispute resolution, but also each one of these individuals are really committed to actually making a difference in this space. And it means that we are on, constantly at our board meetings, really zeroing in on the issues and from a life cycle perspective. So what's important to importers, retailers, recyclers, and the community as well. You'll see on the next slide, we have some strong participation and some new players here, which is great to see. We also have a number of supporters, and as I said, each one of these organisations are essential to our work, and particularly the collectors and recyclers, because they're really working on a day-to-day basis to make our work come to reality. This next slide just gives you a really big overview of the whole process. We have 716 accredited participants. So I mentioned we're a community, and that's really what that reflects, because it's through all of these organisations that our vision and mission becomes real. Over 5,000 drop-off points. We've actually collected since launch more than 8 million kilograms of batteries, and certainly wanting to see that increase significantly. Last financial year, it was just below 3 million kilograms, and that's definitely already increasing this financial year. Last year, the collection rate was just above 15.3%, which is double double since we started. And of those materials, a recovery rate of over 70%. So 70% of those batteries collected going into making something new. Strong participation in loose batteries. Power tools is also good, but needs improvement. And most of that, 40%, we think, comes from the online sales sector. So that really does mean that our work around free riders and engaging online sales is really critical. And then just moving into the e-bike sector, and I suspect that regulation really will be needed to make a big dent in that space. Also seeing some good improvements around households understanding about recycling, a shift from 25% before we started to 47% in households reporting that they regularly recycle batteries. So that's a great improvement. Some international benchmarking. Some of you have seen this before, but compared to European partners at the same time of, throughout their life cycle, so the second year of operation, we're at just under 15%, and they're under just under 11. So significant, certainly very credible and significant comparison. And if you look at the volumes collected, that is also showing significant, I think, performance. Clearly, we'd like to be at the top of that, so I'd like to more than double that. But it does show that comparatively, B-Cycle is doing really well. I mentioned we've had some improvements in awareness too. We've had a 7% reduction in people putting batteries in their household bin, and that reflects the increase in use of battery collection points, which is great. But again, we really need to shift the dial there, and B-Cycle 2.0 is really designed to help us do that. So I just want to go through some of the scheme design. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail because most of you would have seen this, and you can also read it in the B-Cycle 2.0 scheme design, which is on the website. But I thought it would be interesting to just go through and reflect on some of the survey results that we've seen as part of that. So as you'll know, if you've been here before, we've really been thinking through with B-Cycle 2.0, how do we solve the battery problem well into the future, building on our strengths, building on our partnerships, and really thinking into the future for how we can be flexible and efficient and respond and adapt as things change. Really, what we've done with B-Cycle 2.0 is focusing on how do we accelerate diversion of high-risk chemistries and products. And so even though we want general increase in diversion, we actually want to be really focused in on those batteries that are causing problems. So button batteries and lithium batteries in particular, lithium-ion batteries. We went through probably a 6-month consultation process, and a lot of the feedback was very clear. We really need to address free riding and to secure a level playing field for this to work. We need to comprehensively address fire risk and child safety, and that means expanding the scope. And that really is, in response to that changing risk, but also what we've been hearing from government in terms of what they think our priorities should be. Need to be able to adapt to the fluctuating market. Imports, obviously move. We have changes in technology, and those things have a very real impact on our day-to-day operations. Also, we need to be able to be scalable as imports change and imports and collection volumes both fluctuate. And really important to cover the cost of that collection and sorting process so that we can really incentivise circularity. Strong need to invest in behavioural change, but ultimately really to deliver on our mission and accelerate diversion, as I said, particularly of the high-risk batteries. So most of you will have seen this before, but essentially what we've done with B-Cycle 2.0 is design the process to address all of those issues, to really address the feedback from the industry, from participants, but also from the broader industry and government. And that has to be embedded in regulation to prevent free riding. And it also has to allow us to change, to cover the cost of forecast collections, to mitigate risk, to adapt to the cost of economic fluctuations, imports, cost of living, commodity prices, all have quite different trajectories, and it's critical that we are able to manage that. We have modelled a number of scenarios because the reality is we're in a very dynamic environment right at the moment. We've got our ACCC authorisation underway. We've got regulatory reform evolving quite quickly. And so it really was impossible for us to just have one path forward. So we've modelled different scenarios. In the final analysis, the outcome will depend very much on whether we get regulation and what that regulation looks like. So each of the scenarios includes different elements, and obviously we believe that scenarios 4 and 5 are the ones that are really needed to transform battery stewardship in Australia. So here's where we get into some of the survey results. I've only included here the quantitative answers. There's quite a lot of qualitative information, and we have evaluated all of those and identified using a traffic light type arrangement those comments that were supportive but see room for improvement, or not supportive. So the document that we actually presented to the ACCC includes all of this information, so you'll be able to see that when it becomes public. And then we've responded to questions that have been raised as well. So a really important process. So again, thank you all who contributed to that, because it really helps us to adapt and evolve our thinking. So we had 51 respondents, the majority being, the biggest group being importers, but also retailers, drop-off points, collectors, sorters, recyclers, also government. So you'll see they're a pretty good stretch of people. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you strongly support the overall framework? Really pleased to report that 8.33%, or 8.3 was the score out of 10. So strong support for our strategic framework, which, is really appreciated, and I think just is indicative of the work that the BSC team has done to really listen and understand the issues and respond to those. We asked them to rank the principles in order of importance for scheme success, and the highest ones being fair and equitable funding, strong focus on risk reduction and improving safety, which is no surprise, shared responsibility, behavioural change, all really important. Not such strong response when it gets down to increased competition, innovation and efficiency. That is still important to me, but obviously, when we're looking at some of those other issues, a little bit lower on the priority list for our partners. This question was out of 5, with 5 being strongly agree. To what extent do you agree with redesigning the scheme accreditations and the funding model to address high risk batteries? And again, 4.3 out of 5 as the average score, really impressive support for the approach. So I think, it's very clear that we do need to be laser focused on really addressing the risk. B-Cycle 2.0 shows the opportunity for expanding scope. Really the largest, we really want to leverage that as much as possible to really address that evolving risk, as I mentioned. And the scenarios that we've worked on in the final analysis really will depend on the level of government support and direction. And then BSC will respond to that, obviously. As I mentioned, without government government reform, we will really be just in a bit of a holding pattern with sustaining the basics. But really, BSC would love to move into a really transformative battery stewardship, which is seeing major channel expansion, really significant investment in risk reduction, and then scenario 5 modelled on expanding scope into small electronics and electrical equipment. But again, it does very much depend on, the directions of government and also feedback from industry, and the board will then make that choice. But I think it was a really exciting process to go through, really thinking through how do we make a big change in this space. We really want to impact the collection rate, and particularly of the high risk batteries. And I think B-Cycle 2.0 is a really solid plan for how we do that. There's a lot more detail, obviously, in the paper. So if you're new to this, then you may benefit from going to the website and downloading that. One of the key things between our first consultation paper and our second was this inclusion of small electronics and electrical equipment. We had then went back and had a really good look at what is this material, and Brett did some great mapping on the size and weight of that material, and determined that 3/4 of that really could come into our existing network. Obviously, that will require a significant amount of communication and work with existing channels to ensure that they're comfortable with that, but also to develop new channels over time so that we can accommodate that and grow our network. And then we can, over time, expand and improve. The support for that expansion of scope was also really strong. 7.84 was the average response out of 10. The ability for BSC, the impact of that scope expansion for delivering on our objectives. 36 respondents thought it was absolutely necessary, so that was 71%. 25% thought beneficial but not essential, and only 2 respondents thought it wasn't required. We've included in B-Cycle 2.0 the ability for BSC to invest in sustainability. This is around addressing the risk profile. It may be in infrastructure or communications. And what we've seen, so this actually gives you a bit of an overview. So mitigating risk, raising awareness, providing incentives, or supporting expansion of safe collection bins. And when we asked about this, does the sustainability investments fit the bill in terms of addressing battery risks? 78% said yes, and 11% said no. The nice thing about this approach is that the sustainability of investments is something we can work with you to identify where that needs to go exactly, so we can adapt and change in response to industry needs. This question was how strongly do you support the inclusion in general of sustainability investments, and this was also really strong, which is great to see. So an important part of B Cycle 2.0 at 7.96 out of 10. To what degree will the ability of BSC to employ sustainability investments enable us to deliver our investments? 63% said yes, absolutely necessary, 33% beneficial but not essential, and a small number thought it wasn't important. To what extent do you think the sustainability investment categories are spot on? Raising awareness was, first choice, then mitigating risks, then expanding safe collection bins, and then recognising consumer behavioural change. Around the collection net cost recovery and diversification. For those of you that are new to this, we're moving from an offset model to one in which we'll cover the operational costs of collecting and sorting batteries, and really using that process to incentivise expansion of the network and ensuring that we have a really strong, diverse network. It also really allows Sorry about that. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, can hear you, Libby.
Thank you. Yeah, so on a scale of 1 to 10, now I've lost my place. After that, the collection network cost recovery and diversification was also supported at 8.3 as the average rating out of 10. On the eco-modulated processing rebates, the intent behind this change was really to move to a performance-based approach and incentivise circularity so that we can really, over time, improve higher value onshore processing outcomes and invest in advanced technologies and processes. And just to give you, if you're new to it, a little bit more info around that, essentially what we've done is designed the processing rebates to give purchasing priority in a sense, or to really ensure that when the recyclers are delivering higher value outcomes, that the rebates incentivise that outcome. Also, it's to a lesser degree focused on environmental footprint of their operations, achieving audit best practice, transparency best practice, and proactive promotion. So incentivising strong participation in actually delivering B-cycle outcomes as well. Excuse me. On a scale of 1 to 10, we asked how strongly participants or respondents felt about supporting this idea of eco-modulation in the rebates, processing rebates. And again, really strong support here. So very pleased to see that 7.92 as the average rating out of 10. In terms of their ability to deliver our objectives, 63% said absolutely necessary, 33% beneficial but not essential, and 2 not required. On the eco-modulated levies front, really what we've done with B-Cycle 2.0 is design these to reflect both the risk associated with that battery chemistry and also the environmental costs. So that's a really significant change and an important one, and we were keen to get feedback here. The average response from our respondents was 7.84 out of 10. So again, really strong response here, and really looking forward to working on this further and making sure that as we move forward, the nuances of that can be addressed with the importers and other stakeholders. In terms of ability to deliver our objectives, 51% supported, 45% said beneficial but not essential, and 2% not required. The final element that we included was our annual review process. For those of you who are not aware, we had a capped levy in previous years, and that's really led to some challenges. Excuse me, just jump forward. Led to some challenges as commodities, as imports have fluctuated over time due to cost of living pressures. And as we've seen changes in commodity prices. And the reality is that these things go up and down. And so it's really important that we're able to move with that and to be able to be able to use the latest information to ensure that we are being efficient and effective in the way that we're delivering the scheme. Again, strong support for this idea of annual review. The average rating was 8.14 out of 10, which is fantastic. And I think really, very important for the success of the scheme and our ability really to future-proof battery stewardship in Australia. We also wanted to check in around the frequencies of reviews. At the moment, we have it to be annually, and but we designed it to be annually, but we also asked whether quarterly, annually, or biannually would be the preferred. Excuse me, 61% thought this idea of annual was the best. 7 thought quarterly, and 25% thought biannually. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very important, how important it is for B-Cycle to receive authorisation to enable adoption of this framework by July 1st, 2025, and address market concerns and the other challenges that we've talked about. And again, really strong support with over 8 out of 10 being the average response there. So I just thought it would be interesting for you to see how we tracked here. And I think I was incredibly pleased with this overall because we asked these questions at a really tricky time, which was Christmas. And so it was great to get such a strong response. And but I think really this is an ongoing conversation, and we really need your feedback for how we can adapt and change. What the ACCC reauthorisation does is allow us to have some of that flexibility so we can respond to the needs of different, organisations who we're working with and ensure that we really can, as I said, future-proof battery stewardship over time. So quick update on ACCC and regulatory reform. I might start the opposite way around. As some of you would know, we've been very proactive in advocating for national free rider regulation for some time now. We had the Environment meeting, Ministers meeting last year, one in June and one in December, definitely recognising the need for urgent action. What we saw out of the December meeting was that it will be a state-based approach initially. I think there may be some opportunity with the upcoming election to influence that and still work towards a national framework. But we're also really excited by the work that New South Wales is doing and the seriousness and urgency with which they're responding to this issue. And so I'm confident that we will have a quick outcome there. They've really been telling us that it's a strong priority for the Parliamentary Council, which is really fantastic to see. We've been advocating for light regulation, so allowing us to work within our ACCC operation, but having free riders well and truly addressed, and then allowing us to work with our stakeholders to develop a 5-year plan really designed to address that market failure, and then having that annual review process so that we can really address the market failure, but do it in a really efficient and effective manner. Also, with that light regulation, though, we're not talking about light accountability. We need to have very clear procedures for obligated parties within the scheme and to have audits and verification processes to assure that those outcomes are being achieved, but then also report all of those outcomes publicly, as we already do on an annual basis, and also to have an independent audit of the scheme itself so that our stakeholders can be reassured that we are doing what we're saying we're doing. So obviously, from our perspective, we continue to advocate for free rider regulation. We need a national or at least a harmonised approach. This is just really important given how small the market is in Australia. And we also need, we really need to change behaviour in a significant way. And that means that we need focused, consistent messaging across the whole country. We also need to minimise duplication, whether it be, from a recycler perspective, a retailer perspective, or an importer perspective, but ultimately from a consumer perspective. So then as they're crossing jurisdictions, it's a seamless process. Need to leverage the B-Cycle 5,000 strong drop-off points. And also, we've done a huge amount of work to deliver a program that has, strong protocols around it, and strong processing, transparency and verification. And so how do we maximise that and maximise the learnings from that? I mentioned we're beginning with New South Wales, but we're also talking with other states about using the mutual recognition laws, and they are being considered by some states. And certainly we're, working with all states to improve that national reach. A few other things going on I thought I'd just draw your attention to. We are actually having our first scheme audit at the moment, which is really great. DQ has commissioned Yardstick Consulting, and over the past 2 weeks we've been providing them with documentation for the whole 3 years of the scheme around governance, finance and performance. It's actually quite a bit of work, but it's progressing well, and it's really actually been quite a great opportunity because it's good for us to explain our processes to an independent party, and it helps us reflect on where we've got gaps and where we can improve. And we're looking forward to hearing at the end of this process what they see as our opportunities for improvement. I think we really want to be a learning organisation and to respond, to those suggestions, and suggestions from all of our stakeholders. Some of you might be aware that the Recycling and Waste Reduction Act is also just out for review at the moment, and we've prepared a submission for that. I don't think we've put it on the website yet, but I'll ask Kirsten to do that later today. But that was also another opportunity, to look, how do we really strategically influence this space? And it's a number of the issues that were raised are common to other schemes as well. So it's not just about batteries that we can see improvements here. And really, free riders is probably the biggest challenge for those schemes. And so working through some of those issues, but also and it was quite good that it came in partner, at the same time as the audit, because that helped us reflect on how we're working to implement the objects of the Act and how that might be improved. So a quick update on where the ACCC process is up to. The application is with the ACCC. We've had to take some extra time to make changes, and not so much to our proposal in terms of B-Cycle 2.0. There haven't really been any changes there, or no significant ones. But since our first authorisation, the ACCC has actually developed new policies and approaches around how to describe the collective conduct that actually gets authorised. So we've had to really address those things and reword some of our requirements to align with that. And that will just mean that as we move into the evaluation and determination process, it will be a much smoother process. Some of you may be aware that we already had an interim authorisation in for just to be able to address the levy and rebates for CPI. The ACCC asked that we withdraw that application, that it would be more straightforward simply to have one in front of the Commission. And so instead they recommended that we simply had the one application, but include an interim application in that to enable us to begin implementation of B-Cycle 2.0 earlier. And so that's a really important development. We're really pleased to see that that was what they recommended. It will allow us to use the upcoming market analysis, which is due for completion at the end of March, to begin to really move into analysing and modelling the current state, and that will inform the budget for 2026, for FY 2026. A couple of other things I just wanted to draw your attention to. One is just a plug for the Battery Recycling and Manufacturing Summit. ABRE's, this will be its third year. I think it's really evolving well and a very worthwhile event to attend. It's on the 17th of July in Sydney. Also, ICBR, the International Congress for Battery Recycling, is this year in Valencia, Spain, again in September. But I think more importantly for us is that ICBR is coming to Asia. And so I'm moving my attention away from being on the steering committee of the ICBR in Spain and assisting with ICBR Asia. So I think this will be a really fantastic event in Shanghai in early November. So you might want to put that in your calendar, a little bit easier for us to get to. And I think it'll be a really interesting event. If you know of anybody who would be interested in engaging with that event as speaker or even on the steering committee itself, then please reach out and let me know. I think it's going to be a very interesting event. Just want to take a moment to thank the team. I think everyone on this group just makes our day-to-day operations worthwhile and also just work incredibly hard to achieve our mission and vision. So thank you to each and every one of you. And that's it for the presentation, but we've got 15 minutes for questions. Which industries will receive the eco-modulated rebate? So the eco-modulated, there's two pieces to this. The rebate itself is really for the recycling, so processing of batteries. That eco-modulated rebate's really looking at the circularity outcomes and other performance incentives to really motivate increased diversion. But there are also inclusions in the sustainability investments so that we can target new channels. So, we're suggesting at the transformational level, if we have adequate funding to move into that space, a $2 a kilo safety rebate, for example, that would be available for not-for-profits and small businesses to collect batteries. And so we really wanted to look at ways we could incentivise behavioural change without doing it in a CDS model, because we're concerned about the risks that might be associated with consumers hoarding larger numbers of batteries. And so the mechanisms that we were doing that through were this safety rebate and also developing up a strong incentives program that could involve a return voucher at retail, or it could involve community-based incentives. So for those communities that are diverting the largest number of batteries across Australia, they would receive investment in local projects, for example, and then we could promote that really strongly and use that as a way to further incentivise behaviour. Tasra, is the ACCC authorisation still on track to start in July? I think the answer is it's a little bit uncertain, but yes. This interim authorisation that the ACCC has recommended we move towards actually allows us to get started early, and so it needs to get through the commission, but certainly the way it's evolved with the ACCC, it is looking like that will be the outcome. Are they the only two questions, Cara?
Just one more now.
Oh, thanks, David. David's asked, he didn't hear us speak about products with embedded batteries. Actually, so for us, this will depend on government regulation, because moving into such a big space will require significant effort. But I think what we were really excited by as we did the modelling between the first consultation paper and the second consultation paper was really delving into what are the quantities of materials, and products are we looking at with small electronics and electrical equipment with batteries. And Brett did some amazing modelling and determined that about 75% of small electronics and electrical equipment with batteries are really under 3 kilograms and quite small and could fit into our existing network. It may not mean that it's across all of our drop-off points, but a significant proportion, and then we would work to increase the collection channels over time. I think, we would really like to see that happen. I think we see that there's a huge opportunity for us to leverage our network. And also, a lot of the players in this space are the same players. And so it makes sense from an efficiency point of view to maximise our work to really solve what is a very serious and growing issue. Adele has asked whether we've thought about end-of-life electric vehicle batteries. We certainly have, Adele, and we have a number of consultation papers out that address these questions. It's not really our immediate focus, and that's because one of the things that the board has really asked us to do, and governments too, for that matter, is to really focus on where is the risk, that we're having to, address first, and it really is in the smaller batteries that are just going into the waste and recycling sector, in curbside bins. And so our initial focus is really on that small electronics, less than 5 to kilo. Sorry, not less than 5, less than 60 kilos. And from an embedded batteries perspective, initially the smaller sizes, less than 3 kilos, but really quickly moving up and developing channels with for the larger products. And I think when I look back on what we've been able to achieve since we started B-Cycle, the nice thing about our leveraging model, and also combined with our new program for B-Cycle 2.0, means that we are able to quickly build community and build a network that is really tailor-made for these products. So I think there's huge opportunity for B-Cycle to really step in and solve this problem. And we're certainly, as a team, really excited to do that and enthusiastic to work with new partners and existing partners to make that work. I think that's all the questions that I can see.
Yep, that seems to be all, Libby.
Actually, I did have one more slide I might quickly share. Oh, I don't think it matters. I'll just thank you all, and just want to acknowledge once again the team and all of you for coming and being part of our journey as we really work hard to solve this issue, and to acknowledge that B-Cycle is an Australian government accredited product stewardship scheme, and that we, as I said, are looking forward to keeping you in the loop and updated as we go. So looking forward to another webinar in a month or so, and by then we'll probably have a lot more information to give you around the ACCC reauthorisation, but also around regulatory reform. We have the New South Wales EPA coming to our board meeting next week, and are meeting with them regularly as they form up what the regulatory environment will look like. So looking forward to talking with you more about that, and wishing you all a safe week as we navigate some difficult times in Queensland and New South Wales. And for the rest of us, that you have enjoy the rest of your week and the weekend. Bye for now.